Man, I'm gonna share with you one of my biggest discoveries. This is going to fix every single non-HDR supported game. And it's going to fix some native HDR games that are broken. So I was noticing, man, why this 44 screen brightness value, why I see that so frequently, why I see that Cyberpunk, I have to lower this screen brightness to 44, why I see this 44 on Dogs Legions, I have to lower that to 44, why when I turn on HDR from Windows, I max out the slider and I open a non-supported HDR game, why I see that this value is the correct value. Why I open this black level pattern when I am on HDR on Windows, and I made this video showing you this near black pattern. Why I have to lower the screen brightness to 44. There's something magic about this value. Well, here's what it is. This is so huge, man, because this is basically fixing every single non-supported HDR game. They are all looking perfect now. This is also fixing Metro Exodus. I'm gonna show you the game. I have it open. So here's what's going on here. When you turn on HDR from Windows 11, the TV is on auto. So the correct is to have the TV, the black level, on auto. Okay, so the TV is going to automatically detect if it's limited or full. So for example, if I have the TV on SDR, for example, and I change on the Nvidia control panel, I change this to limited, and I have this black level on auto, the TV is going to be unlimited. So if I change from auto to limited, I would see no difference. And if I have the Nvidia control panel on full and I change from auto to full, I'm gonna see no difference. Okay, so when I turn on HDR from Windows 11, the TV is in full, because full is the correct setting for native HDR. So when you open a native HDR game, the TV is going to be on the correct mode. Now, for some reason, some games on HDR are unlimited, and that's why I needed to lower this screen brightness to 44. So I tested that 100% on this near black test pattern. If I go here and lower this screen brightness to 44, it is exactly the same as if I just leave it at 50 here and come here and change this to limited. It is exactly the same visibility. But this limited is also going to affect the highlights and everything. So now we have here Metro Exodus. This is like the final boss of the broken HDR games. Okay, so we have here Metro Exodus on HDR, which is an on and off toggle. There's no HDR settings on Metro Exodus. Okay, so we have this on auto, and everyone is telling me, man, this looks awful. Somebody asked me some days ago, and I said, man, just use HLG. The game has the HDR broken. There's nothing we can do. I tested the game again, now with everything that I know, and I see the game was trying to output over 2000 nits. So what is the game trying to do? This game should support the system level calibration, and it does on the console. It does support the system level calibration, but on the PC, there was no system level calibration. So the game should come with sliders in that case, but it doesn't, so it's basically broken. But now we do this and it's fixed. Of course, we need to use dynamic tone mapping, because the game is trying to output over 2000 nits, so you cannot do HGIG because it's going to look blown out, and you cannot do tone mapping off, dynamic tone mapping off, because dynamic tone mapping off has a 4000 nits target range, and it is going to roll off at 250 nits, so you're not going to get the full peak brightness of the display, because the game is never trying to output 4000 nits, at least not that I've seen. I haven't played the game a lot because of that broken HDR, but now I'm going to play. So what you do is just tone mapping on, dynamic tone mapping on, and just change it to limited. And there you go. It's fixed. So I haven't tested this yet, but I am almost sure I will show you that on a video. I'm going to do a video showing you Cyberpunk, Watch Dogs Legions, this game, and 2 or 3 non-HDR supported games. All those games that I needed to lower that black level to 44. You just change it to limited, and there you go. Man, this is where is that information? How I discovered that because I am every day. You see that I upload a video every day. This TV is amazing. Okay, this is a dream for me. So, it's amazing having a high-end gaming computer with all the games available. It has become a passion because I'm really enjoying discovering how to make this look better. But for somebody who just wants to play the game or just use the TV, how can you know? How can you figure this out? I've been for over 3 months already, every single day discovering something new. It's just insane. This is a high-tech TV, but it shouldn't be that difficult, man. And it's all these computers, Windows, the consoles, the TV. There's no communication, so it is difficult to figure these things out. Who is telling you what's going on here? What's the difference between HGIG, dynamic tone mapping off, dynamic tone mapping on? Who is telling you that? LG? Why LG doesn't have here an explanation? They should. They should have an explanation here of what this is doing exactly and in what case should you use that. For example, dynamic tone mapping off, nobody uses that because people don't know what it is. You are supposed to use this as the most accurate setting when you're watching a movie, for example, that was mastered in 4000 nits. So if the movie is mastered in 4000 nits, it was mastered using that Dolby Pulsar reference monitor. So the TV has that 4000 nits target and it's going to roll off at 250 nits. So you can also use dynamic tone mapping, it's going to work, but I would use this instead and it would be better. But who is telling you that? Who is telling you that the movie is mastered at that peak brightness? Who is telling you that you should use this setting? Or who is telling you what is HGIG? HGIG is tone mapping off. The TV is going to follow the EOTF and it's going to hard clip at the peak brightness of the display, which is supposed to be 800 nits. So basically, the signal is in range. The TV is not going to do any tone mapping, and you can do that for the games that have slider or for the system for the games that support the system level calibration. So all these things, who is telling you that? So here on the black level, I think there is an explanation. Adjust the darkness level of the screen to create a more perfect black color. Set the black level according to the color range set in the external device. Yeah, that's explained. And you should have this on auto, but in this case, sometimes those HDR games are unlimited, and the SDR content on Windows is unlimited. So unlimited. So I'm going to do a separate video. I haven't tested Cyberpunk or Watch Dogs Legions yet, but I am almost sure. I would bet a lot of money that that's the case. Yeah, I'm almost sure that's the case. So there you go. The final boss of broken HDR, Metro Exodus, is now finally finally usable. It's not spectacular. It would be better if the game supports HDR, the calibration, the system level calibration, because the game is trying to output over 2000 nits and this display doesn't support that. But it doesn't look washed out anymore. And if I turn off the HDR from the game and I have the Windows HDR on, what's gonna happen, and this applies for every single non-supported HDR games. what's going to happen if you max out the SDR HDR slider on Windows, the games are going to try to output 498. So the MaxCLL is 498 nits, because after 600 nits is HDR. So that's like the limit between SDR and HDR, like 500 nits. So all the games that are not supported are going to try to output 498, so almost 500 nits. So what you do in those cases, you're going to have the TV unlimited, and you're going to use dynamic tone mapping to get the maximum peak brightness, or you can use HGIG. HGIG, what it's going to do is going to follow that EOTF until 500 nits. So it's going to follow, so it's going to look accurate. The highlights are going to be about 500, 550 nits. I was measuring it. So you're not going to get up to 800, but it's going to look very good. The shadow detail is going to look good, and it's gonna be a better presentation, in my opinion. What I would do is, if I'm not going to use black frame insertion, so for no black frame insertion, I would use HGIG. And if I am going to use black frame insertion, then I would use dynamic tone mapping. On this case, you see that the dynamic tone mapping is darker, and that's because we have a bright object on the screen, so the TV is deciding to make that object brighter, and also because this game is trying to output over 2000 nits. That's why you see that difference. But for non-supported HDR games, I would use dynamic tone mapping to get the highest peak brightness on the highlights, or to use black frame insertion. Or if you're gonna play on a dark room and you like to enjoy the shadow detail more accurately, it's gonna be better to use HGIG. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions, man. I am so happy because I think I figured out everything on HDR. The only thing I have to figure out is how to do a color transformation, so I can basically do the same that Windows is doing, changing the color space to that wider color gamut. But yeah, I'll figure that out later. And of course, in the future, I'm probably going to get a colorimeter and just learn how to calibrate and do all of that. The other thing I want to learn how to do, and I want to learn how to do this as soon as possible, it is using Kalman Home for LG. It's Kalman Home, yeah. And I want to use Kalman Home for LG to change this HDR tone mapping off, to change this option to what I want. So you can change this. Instead of targeting 4000 nits, you can do, for example, you can measure the peak brightness of your display, and if the peak brightness of your display is 790 nits or 760, something like that, you can tell the TV to hard clip exactly at its peak brightness, and you can change the default, that 4000 nits default, and that would be like an improved HGIG. Or you can do that 4000 and same 4000 or 1000 and change the roll-off point. Instead of being 250, you can change that to be a different value. I don't know which one would be better. That's probably the best value, but you can change it and try it and see if it looks better. I guess that 250 nit value, it has to do with the ABL and the dimming that the TV has to do and all of that. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions.